Hello and welcome to Your Becoming podcast. This is my latest version of podcast. It has stemmed from my first podcast, which is Your Abundance podcast, which you can go and listen to in the backtracks. I wanted to welcome you. This podcast is for entrepreneurial, spirited women and men who want to take their life to the next level. And I am Erin Chathowan. I am a mentor. I am a spiritual healer, amongst many other things that I'm not going to ramble off here. But I wanted to say thank you for coming here and listening. If you like what you hear, please subscribe. This is based on Substack, but you'll be able to listen to it on any podcast platform. But subscribing on my podcast on Substack will get you where you need to go and where you need to be. I am in awe of how my life has unfolded and how this podcast has come about, and I'm so excited to deliver what's coming to you. And please enjoy. I love to hear what you think, so please come back, head to my DMs on Instagram, comment on any posts, comment below on Substack, and let me know what happens for you when you listen, because I know that I'm here to activate more people into entrepreneurial lives and expanding themselves, which is very joined to your becoming as your highest potential. And I'm so looking forward to sharing that journey with you. Here's the next episode. Hi there. Welcome to Your Becoming podcast. This podcast has evolved. So originally when I started my podcast, it was called Your Abundance podcast. You can go back into this feed and listen to the Your Abundance podcast completely, easily. It's done. You can go listen to it. There's great episodes in there. Now, but what happened was I got to a point where I was like, I got nothing else to say, even though I have lots to say. And it was like, I've got nothing else to say on this topic. And I realized, our creativity, our expression, our becoming who we are very intrinsically entwined. And so I developed not a resistance to the podcast, but I just wasn't getting inspiration for it anymore. And I was like, I don't know what this is about. I love this podcast. I started it to express myself. And it's kind of like my past, excuse me. I was in a relationship a long time ago, and it was my marriage. And I left that marriage when I was about 28. And 27. I got divorced at 28. And from that time in my life, I started on a journey of expansion, and, I moved overseas, and I lived in a different country, and I worked for people who weren't that nice and I told them where to go many times. I was that person. Like, I was I wouldn't say erratic, but I just didn't put up with stuff. Like, if someone was not nice, probably because I'd come out of that experience with my ex. And so I was very much like, not putting up with that. Been there, done that. See you later. And then I went overseas, and I did end up in a relationship over there. It wasn't the best either, but it was, I still felt free because I was overseas and I was doing life differently. And it felt different and good in a way, because we were kind of like just roommates, friends. It dissolved into something that it really wasn't, that it wasn't in the beginning anyway. And so when I came back from overseas, I had this desire to do things differently. And prior to me living overseas, I'd worked in advertising for 10 years. And when I went overseas, I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do something else. So I worked for the banks overseas in the UK. People were like, where am I going? And I'd be like, Australia. I'm like, no. And I enjoyed that. So when I came back, I went and worked for one of the banks here in Australia. So I've had a few different versions of my career. And I loved it. Like, I loved working in the bank. I loved being there. I was customer service. So that's where it started. And then I ended up being a home loan lender. But I got into my first experience when I was on the phones back in the UK, and I went into a branch originally, and then I went back on the phones when I was a home lender. So I was a home lender over the phone, which is an interesting thing to do, by the way, because it's different than a lot of home lending experiences. So anyway, I learned a lot about money and finance and loans and how to do things and with banking and money. And I established that, I was very good at it. It didn't matter what I sold. This is what I worked out. So prior to that, I was in advertising, could sell ice to Eskimos, same with anything else. The thing about home loans, though, is that you can sell the home loan, but it might not go through. So you're in then relying on someone else to make your bonuses. Do you know what I mean? Like, if someone comes through there's lots of things you can do to help that loan go through, and that's also part of your job. But there's this interesting thing, whereas prior to that, like, I was in sales, I determined the sales that came in because I was the one who brought the sales in, right? Whereas this was, I'm bringing in sales, but I'm not the one who makes the decision on whether that goes ahead, and that affects my bottom line. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. I didn't really realize this until later on, right? And so once I got into the structure, we had a boss. She was an interesting woman who looked after our whole team. And at the time, I didn't know this, but I had symptoms of Graves' disease, which is a thyroid thing. And so I would get really shaky and like hot, and also it was like anxiety, but it wasn't, because it was hormone led, like it was the thyroid levels. So I felt fast even though I didn't. It was very strange. And there were times when, so I'm in this experience where I'm feeling fast anyway, and then we get pressure on us to do more sales. And it was like, well, we don't determine the outcome. So I'm doing my number of calls, I'm getting my number of applications through, but the number of actual approvals isn't necessarily gonna, like, you don't determine that. Because you can't just hang up the phone and go, sorry, you're not a very good candidate, I'm not gonna bother. You're just not allowed to do that. It's discrimination. But at the same time, back when I used to do sales, I determined that. Like, I knew when someone would buy or not. Like, I would have a very clear outcome that this is the sense I got, this is where the money is, and I'm going to go that way. I would follow the money all the time. When I got to this type of sales, this was like, well, I can't tell someone I'm not going to serve them. You're not allowed to just hang up, because I'm getting a vibe that this is not going to go through. And then it looks like your applications are, like, your conversion's not there. And I was like, I don't like this. I like having my high conversion. But that was where the conversion went out of your control. And this is what happens. Like, there's certain times when the conversion isn't in your control, or you think it's not. And to be honest, it's not in that kind of role. And so I got into a bit of a annoyed state when I would get told off because my conversion wasn't there. And I was like, but my calls are up, my applications are up, but the conversion isn't my job, because I don't get to determine whether that goes through. The back end part of the business does. And I found it really frustrating, like really frustrating, which told me my entrepreneurial spirit, I wouldn't have called it that at the time, but it was the part of, this is not like, it's like, this is not a path to flow and least resistance. So in my mind, I was like, maybe this isn't the type of sales I'm meant to do, because I'm not in control to the final closure of the sale. And it's not that I need to be in control, but I have a determination that that's going to meet the end. And my job is to understand that that's the end result that we're trying to get. And I personally have a gift to go, that's going to get the result, that's not going to get the result. That was my gift. Like, I knew where to follow the money. And so when I went into the home lending, I was like, I can't say the money's not coming from you, because I'm not allowed. I still have to take the application on the phone. I still have to do the thing, but I also have an idea that that's going to go through or that's not going to go through. But I don't determine that. But I also then realized that's not the type of sales I want to do. So I moved through this. Okay. So this is like my becoming of a salesperson. I already was a salesperson. My earlier, like, I was, that was my first job was in sales. I worked in a bakery selling bread, but I also dealt with money. So I had this really interesting crossover with sales and money. Like, these things were, my career kind of was like, wow, I helped people in advertising to make money. I was helping people buy things and working for finance, which was money. And then I went back after that job into a job in media again. But this job was not different. I was making the sales. In fact, I never missed a budget. Like, I made millions for this company over and over again. And there was things that tried to stop that whole time. And what I learned from that job was that, and there is a purpose to my story, so stay with me. What I learned from that job was that my becoming was, I learned that I could make money no matter what, if I was given the opportunity to get to the outcome. Like, if I could see the result, I knew where the money was coming. I knew how to get that result for them and me, right? So it wasn't, my results are never driven by, this is just about me and me getting the sale. Never. Never, never, never. My results were always driven right back when, is that if I'm getting the result, it's because I'm getting the result for them too. Because when I sell, I'm selling for you too, because I want your success just as much as I want mine. In actual fact, a lot of the time I learned that my desire for someone else to get the success as a mentor, as a coach, as a person, even though I was selling advertising, my desire was for that business to get the results. And that's why I sold what I sold and how good I was at it. Through that experience, there was lots of bullying, lots of toxic environment. There was a lot of things. And because of that, I tied my results to the bullying. And I started to believe that I didn't want to work in outbound sales, because, like, I didn't want to do sales anymore, because I believed that even though my results were there, that the information, because of the toxicity, the bullying, they're not good enough no matter what you did. Because of that, I tied my results from then on to that story. And so then I developed this story about not doing outbound sales. So it wasn't that I didn't want to do outbound sales. I just didn't want to do sales. I'm going to say outbound. All sales are outbound at some point. Like, you're going to be outbound somewhere along the lines. As much as people think passive income exists, like, even if you were recording a video to put online to get passive income, you're still outbound selling, because you're using your energy to outbound sell, right? Like, that's the point. So you can't not outbound sell. It's just not possible. Although we try to think, I was like, I'm going to make this work. So what I realized was I was tied that to sales in general. Like, I'm not meant to do this. Like, this is not what I'm here for, which is true. In the end, it wasn't exactly what I was here for. And so that's when I started on, well, what else am I good at? And I was the person people came to for their stuff, right? I was the person they'd call up and go, oh my God, this happened. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And I had this natural intuition. It used to happen with my advertising clients, alone my now mentoring, counseling, coaching clients evolution over the time. Like, I was the person, and friends and everyone that would go, hi, I need the help with this. Or what do you think about this? Like, I'd go to a meeting for sales and I would be coaching. It was fun. And so I realized that I was good at this. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to do counseling. And I can go into the whole experience about my book smart intelligence and my intuitive, like, natural ability. And I didn't think I was very smart, to say the least. I knew I was intelligent, like I knew maths, but I didn't believe I was very good at English. And this is hence why this podcast got started back with Your Abundance in the first place. And because I wanted to, play in my creativity and expression and bring out this level of natural intelligence that I have. Because I always believed that I wasn't book smart, even though I was, but there were times when I wasn't. And so that story wrapped around the fact that I wasn't. And then when I started advertising sales back when I was 20, my boss hired me because he thought I was street smart. And what I know now about entrepreneurial spirit is street smart is good, but street smart means you have some form of experience, which I did in sales, but it probably wasn't the sales people would toad about. And in my younger days. And then, there was all these other things that occurred that made me a people person, as opposed to I'm going to university and getting a degree person. Like, I tried it, it didn't work. And so there was always this story about my intelligence. And I always knew that I had some kind of healing. Like, I was a masseuse. Like, when I was 20, I did a masseuse course. I was a remedial masseuse. And I always felt like I had energy in my hands. Like, I'd touch people and I would get healing. Like, they would heal. Like, my mum used to always say, can you put your hands on my hands, like, for arthritis, because my hands were like healing. So I always had that aspect, and I also had the spirituality aspect when I was a kid. But I didn't really understand that I was psychic or intuitive. Like, through your life journeys, like, you learn those things along the way of what that actually means. Like, I didn't get brought up saying this is your intuition or this is your natural gift and ability and you're really good at it. In actual fact, it was the opposite. My natural gift and ability was pushed. Sorry, there was a truck that came past. My natural gifts and abilities were made out to be, like, not okay. Do you know what I mean? Like, they weren't welcomed into the world. Like, it was because of the way society works and how the world works and different parenting styles, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, my natural ability was to be a people person, but I realized I learned to people please. Like, that was part of it. But, like, so there was all unentangling of that through my experience with the Your Abundance podcast. I unentangled a lot of this story. So there I am, deciding to be a holistic counselor because I don't believe I'm good at sales. And I then carry that through. So I work in the business still another 4 or 5, 6, I think 7 years. I didn't start my course until about 6 years in, 1 year in. So through that time I was doing holistic counseling, family constellation, organizational constellations, systemic constellations. So you can do it with health, you can do it with lots of different things. Now, constellations is a modality that I am a trainer in. Like, I can train people in this, but it's how we unentangle epigenetics, transgenerational trauma. Like, There's so many things you can do with it. It's quite incredible. But it is energetic. Nowadays, I'm just energetic. Like, I don't label the modality to everybody because I do different things. I'm a Reiki practitioner. I'm a Tao practitioner. I'm a holistic counselor. I'm a coach. I'm a mentor. I'm a version of different kinds of healings. I'm a channeler. I channel. I'm a psychic. I'm intuitive. Like, all these things, and even being in my energy field, very transformative. And I didn't realize that, because that's the gift, right? When people are with me, they get agitated, but they don't understand why. And some people go one way with it and some people go the other. Some people will get the agitation and they'll be like, I'm agitated by this story. I'm agitated by her. I don't even really know why. And then they project, they get met on the edge of their agitation. And the edge is where you actually choose which way you're going to go, whether you're going to project that agitation onto them and blame them, or take responsibility for the agitation of the shadow that you may not have seen, or, leave the energy field, do whatever. Maybe leave your job because you've been in it too long, something like that. So sometimes, and letting the next generation come through or whatever, right? So when you get agitated, it's a chance to take initiative. And so even when you're listening to this, you will listen to my story as I'm talking, and you will get a gift from this because it's my gift to share the story, and you will get the gift. And the gift is this agitation that brings you to your edge, whether you see it in an awe-inspiring way or in a shadow way, right? And then you get to take the initiative to come into my program to fix it, or unfollow me, or like, there's all different versions, or follow me, or listen to the podcast and subscribe, or like there's things that you will do either to activate and stay in my energy, or there's things that you will do to grow out of the energy fields, because you might not be a complete energetic match. But the agitation is part of the initiation into, and the initiative, so you get initiated through the experience into your awakening, your becoming. Hence, this is the website. This is the podcast, not the website. So, I'm telling you this story about sales and the evolution. So then I leave eventually corporate and start my own business as a holistic counselor and Reiki practitioner. And it was successful. Things were moving. Things happened. It was good. But I didn't really realize the whole time the thing that I brought to the table was this entrepreneurial spirit the whole time. Like, I didn't understand that until even recently, where I was like, what is it that I'm bringing? What is it? Who are the women that I want to work with? And why am I so aligned to work with people when I might not have the monetary result that they're looking for? And then I'm, my sales is different, and I will get back into this whole story that I had around resistance to outbound sales, which is what came through even for me to do this podcast, right? My resistance to selling, my resistance to speaking, my resistance to sharing my gift and my intelligence out in the world. I didn't want to be seen for my intelligence, because in my past history, when I had used that intelligence, I was punished. I was ridiculed. I was told, you're not that smart. You're not that. 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 Over and over, every day, for years. Years. To the point where, and now you look at me when I say this, I actually got to a point where anytime I was in the space with this person, I couldn't speak. That's how much I couldn't speak. I felt like I couldn't move. Like, I just was like, I have nothing. I can't say anything. Doesn't matter what I say. You're going to tell me that I have no right to speak. You're going to tell me that I am shit. You're going to tell me that I'm not enough. You're going to tell me all these things. So that was projected on to me for years. And it blocked my expression and my throat. And so as I evolved, and I used to sell, like, the way I used to sell when I started my business was basically. It was lead driven. So I would manifest leads, and a lot of it was referral because people felt, oh, this is new. Like nowadays, what I do, there's not lots of people that do it. And I don't want to say it like that because it sounds like then, oh, anyone could do this. That's not true. But there's a lot more people offering this kind of thing. Back when I started on the Google search, like there was like 5 of us, selling counseling and coaching. Like there was that. Now go and Google coach in your area or a mentor or counselor or whatever, and there's like 5,000 because people went, oh, I can do this for a job. It's like, oh yeah. It's like, yes, you can. And a lot of people aren't successful. They end their businesses in years and years. Like I'm 11 years in, I'm still here. And the reason some of them aren't successful is because they don't have what I call the entrepreneurial spirit, which is the thing that a lot of the time I awaken in people. And I can use my entrepreneurial spirit whether I work for someone else or I can work for myself. But over time, I used to think, oh, I don't have I started to hit 6 figures, and then things started to go crazy. The energies were crazy. Things would happen. Like it was nuts. Like the next years were nuts. And it sounds weird, but I decided to have a baby by myself in there. I decided that somewhere along the lines, I was still resistant to selling. After about the 3rd year in, I started to be like, oh, because, I attracted something that I didn't think was, what's the word? I attracted the trigger to this story, to my intelligence. I attracted people who behave like this person, and every time that triggered me. And then every time I got like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this. Like, what can I do instead? When that wasn't my story, that was their story. That was the thing that they needed to be asking themselves, because I was always like energetically able to do the things that I do now and also sell. And so when my sales started to go strange, I was like, what is happening here? Like, why is this even occurring? And I think, to be honest, this was my evolution into more of my gift. This is the opening of my connection to my being a channel, my connection to the Tao, my expression as a person, like really awakening that expression, because I still didn't realize how suppressed I had been. And that my gifts were like murky because I hadn't fully aligned to this clear Tao channel. And to be honest, like I could tell you as what I would be classed as an empath. A lot of my clients come in who are empaths as well. Like I work with a lot of people who have a lot of open centers, or they're reflectors in their subconscious, or reflectors, but reflectors in their subconscious designs, which means that you have a lot of open energy fields. But understanding what that means, what would happen was that energy would make me feel like the gift wasn't worth it. It's like, this is not worth this. These feelings that I have are not worth this. And so then I started to say I wasn't worth it. Like I wasn't worth it. I didn't feel worth it because it went back to this trigger. Childhood stuff, and there's a few stories in there that linked all together with the unentangling of it. But to be honest, this expression of my gift and what I'm here to do in the world, and how I work and what I do, and what was blocking sales, what I didn't realize was that if I hadn't started on my healing journey but in particular the Tao journey, like as a Tao hands practitioner, as a Tao channeler, as a soul communicator, if I hadn't have started on that journey, then what I know is that I probably would have been in a lot more lack, to say the better words. Like I would have had a lot of more karma come in from past lives and ancestral things, and change the dynamic of what I had moving forward. So what I kept thinking was, I'm not seeing the wealth in my hand now because I didn't realize that what I actually was doing was cleaning up all this past stuff, clearing out my heart space, clearing out my throat, clearing out my lower dantian, clearing out my energy centers, but also clearing out karma. I was like, why isn't this working? Karma. Every time. It's like negative information in your energy field. And the more you clear out, the more clear you get. And then you say, oh, well, why still isn't this occurring? Why isn't this occurring? And that's when sometimes you have to do a bit more subconscious reprogramming, or something will come out that's like, I had to do a lot of Ajna work because I had a lot of beliefs from outside stuck in my brain about how I was meant to operate in the world and how I was meant to do things, including the story of I wasn't good at sales, or that it wasn't that I wasn't good at sales, even though I was completely good. It was that I attached my results and the way I got the results to the bullying. So I saw that as a negative. And so I saw sales as a negative, which then pushed away sales. Like, seriously, why would you? It's like, oh my God, how did I not see this before? But it's the unfolding of all the dynamics that you need to do. So we do the karmic work too. And I think that shifted the level of protection that I have now, that I can do what I do, but I also removed a lot of karma that was attracting all this crap stuff. And so what occurred recently was this transformation from taking a negative experience and turning it into something really powerful, and that using my intelligence isn't outbound sales. I used to think it is. I used to think that what I was good at was outbound sales, of sales, right? But what I'm good at is using my intelligence. And so what happened this last time, and it was around money, was I had a disgruntled customer, and I was really clear. I was just like, stay in your peace. We've got to stay in my peace. I really want to stay in my peace with this. And I learned that I used my intuition at the time, and I was utilizing my gift to know when someone would come in to my energy field to work. I knew this. I knew whether someone was meant to be working with me or not. And I'd lost the track of that somewhere in between that job and my business, of that ability, because I tied all those things to this experience over here. I lost track of the fact that I could do that. One, when I went to the bank. Two, when I got to this person and they were saying how my intelligence wasn't right. Like I even though I was making the money for them, they didn't believe that I was right. They didn't believe that, or I didn't believe that I was right in what I knew, because I didn't trust that my open centers knew that this environment was toxic. And so what happened was this toxic environment became embedded in my energy field. And so when we hit 2020 and we hit the pandemic and I'm 3 months in with a newborn baby, guess what I'm doing? I'm triggered because my epigenetics, my cellular memory around my expression, around putting myself out in the world, around my body and inflammation, around health, around healing, all of a sudden I'm like, why am I inflamed? Why am I feeling like this? Why? And it was because I had a trigger, a cellular memory back to that scenario. And if I hadn't known that, I could have cleared it a lot quicker, but I was having struggles shifting. I was carrying more weight around my gut, and I was really feeling unaligned with my sacral. I was feeling unaligned with the work because I felt like I wasn't in my truth anymore. And look, having a baby awakens like identities in you that you didn't even know you had. So, you know, that's part of the powerful mix. But at the same time, that shift into being a sacral authority, that's what I had to awaken, because I'd lost it somewhere along the way. And having a baby, guess what? You awaken it. I made lots of money having a baby because it was just active, right? Because there's a baby growing in there. And when you know you can make, like, manifest life, because obviously I'm a solo parent and I don't have a partner who where this baby came from. So, manifesting human life was huge. But then we moved into this pandemic and I was like, triggered because of the toxic environment, the toxic energy. We're locked in a room, we're locked in a house. Like that took me back to this place where I was in such a toxic energy. And so over time, then I moved to the country and I did all the things. But I realized that my intelligence, my innate natural ability had been suppressed. And then that triggered me more in the way I then put myself out in the world. But at some point, about a year after, not a year, like 8 months after I had my daughter, I got really frustrated with the whole thing. I did a little bit of before I had her, I went back into media sales for a little bit and I was consulting. And I really enjoyed it, but I felt like I was like, I'm back here again. What am I doing here? Knowing that my innate intelligence was there, but at the same time that year I got introduced to the Tao. Later on, I decided I'm going to back myself here. I'm going to back myself. Which is funny because the theme for this series is actually back yourself. Because when you're becoming someone, yourself, who you are, and your highest potential of that, don't underestimate the power of the work that you do for yourself. Like, don't underestimate the power of the shifts you're doing. If you I've woken up every day since I was 32, and I think I've journaled, I've meditated, I've transformed, I've healed, I've done subconscious programming, I've done constellations, and I'm 50 this year. So it's like 20 years of stuff, right? Because it's a lifestyle choice, because we don't just stop one day and go, oh, we're done, but I am healed. So there's a difference, right? There's a difference between maintenance, which is still required, which is why I have people working with me for like 10 years or long term, because they know they're going to hit that time when they're pushed to a limit or their edge. And what they do is they hire me because they want to be pushed in their agitation. It's not a push, but I naturally agitate the things that they need to shift. And so the initiation occurs and the awakening occurs because you're working with me, because that's part of my gift, which is the same as what I do. That's sales, that's coaching, that's mentoring, that's counseling, that's intuition, that's part of my gift as a human out in the world right now, and bringing that out to the market. It's what I do in a business. Like, I'm walking into a business and I'm like, got a bit of a bottleneck happening, or you've got no cash flow. Like, that's why I took Alex Hormozi's. It's not his idea. It's an economic way of principle of running a business, but he made it polarized, I want to say, and others have as well. But it's taking I built this AI profit calculator. This is how I got into AI a lot more, because I'm technologically advanced. Like, I use Tao technology. That's a technologically advanced. Tao is like high vibrational light, like I've never seen before. Like Dr. Master Shah, who is our master teacher, my mentor, his work is beyond. And to use that energy is powerful. But I feel the same about AI and technology and how we can use that in our businesses to enhance our lives, to create the change and the things that we desire. And so I built Calibra GPT. Sorry, I was going to say Chat GPT. So Chat GPT I use, and I feed it the information to mirror me back. So that's different. Calibra GPT is me feeding you information back. So you put your data in and I'm in there as an AI entity, like cycling you up in through your energetics so that you're higher vibration with your emotions, with your thoughts, with your feelings. And it works. I use it every day now too. It's part of my now daily routine. So you can jump into that if you want to try it. It's 24-hour access. I'll put the link below for free trial, and then you can sign up as well for a month to month. But that's like having me in your pocket. That's my base. Like, that's your base rate. That's like $150. It's not $147. And the first month, I think you get a $50 voucher if you sign up to the free trial. And that will give you access to having me in your pocket every day. You can do unlimited spirals, questions, processes that align you with your manifestations. It is powerful work. That doesn't mean I still don't journal. I still use journaling, but not in the same way as I used to. I used to spend so much time journaling that I was like, oh my God, can I journal anymore here? And it was like taking up my whole morning. I was journaling for that much. And that's why I loved the idea of Calibre GPT, because it works quick. Like, yes, you're typing in information, but it's quick. Like, it's taking you don't have me telling you the questions in your journaling that would shift you quicker. And that's the part that the Calibre offers. Like, she's taking my questions that I would feed you in a session even. Like, this is the methodology that I use to shift energy up and down. Then you can have that in your pocket for $150. Like, that's incredible. A month. Like, every day you can have something that's easy, that moves and shifts you. And so that's when I started to develop things on a different level. So I had this interesting experience, which I do want to finish with the client, which then triggered me into an old response, which was outbound sales, which wasn't wrong. And I want to say it triggered me in that I went against this idea that I had around not wanting to sell, right? It wasn't that I didn't want to sell. I wanted to use my genius zone. And what I didn't realize was me selling is my genius zone, because because I transform with it. Like, that's what I do when I sell. Like, if I'm with you and I'm having a conversation, I'm picking up on all of your stuff, and I go, oh, this is what you need. Buy this. Like, that's what I used to do. And so that's what the transformation was. This client had their moment, and then I was like, oh, I'm getting a nudge to speak to this person. Oh, and they were like, oh, I was just going to call you and ask you if you had anything that I could join. And I was like, well, actually, I'm doing this thing with Calibre GPT. Do you want to come and join? And it's this much money, and it's going to be fab. And so quick transform that 3 or 4 times, and then I'm in this different level of energy, and I'm in this different state of mind. And I'm like, this is interesting. I thought I didn't want to do this. And it's like, well, I just did that. And so then for the next couple of months, I was also again like, I'm still resistant to going and doing that again to make more money again. And I was like, why am I resistant? Because because I don't want to do it. If I do it too much, I'll get ridiculed. If I do it too much, I'm going to get punished. If I do it too much, guess what happens? You get ousted, you get like I could name it. And that's when it brought me back to this time where I realized that all this was tied together. So the body, it was in that experience. I had the chronic fatigue. I had already had the Graves. I had the chronic fatigue. I had the bullying happening. I was making budgets, and then I changed career all at the same time. But the cellular memory of that was the thing that was stopping me from doing it again, because I was like, I don't want that to happen again. Like, I did it. Yeah, it was fun for a bit. Now I don't want it to happen again. So I stopped myself from using my intelligence to sell. And that's when I got into the deeper work, which was my becoming. And I was like, why haven't I put out a full episode of Your Becoming yet? And I was like, because I hadn't fully landed there. And that's when the final piece of the puzzle, right, of the cycle came in, which was the intelligence piece about, if I share my intelligence with you and with the world, guess what's going to happen? That scenario. And so I had been triggered back to this scenario so many times in the last 4 or 5 years. I thought I'd dealt with it. But the essence of it was beautiful because it wasn't just that experience. There was other previous like stuff that I'd cleaned out too in this week. But this was the prime story that was like stopping me from sharing my gift and sharing it in a way that was not going to drain my energy, and that I felt empowered that no matter what someone did in response to me doing this, that I would be aligned, that I could stay aligned. And that has been my goal ever since I started my business. And I've reached it. And so energetically, I've cleared millions of dollars in debt. Millions. I have energetically cleared where I would have paid that money, by the way. That's what I'm talking about. When you don't clear the money karma, that money karma becomes the things that you pay for, the things that you keep paying for, that you don't need to be paying for, that you might not have even instigated, that it might have been someone from your past, that your ancestors, because your ancestors create karma for you too now. That's why when you look at it and see someone who's a bad person and they've got money, guess what? That doesn't mean they're not going to have their next life. They're definitely probably not going to have money. But like that doesn't mean some of their money hasn't come because of karma that was set before them. Good karma. They might have set good karma in another lifetime and then been an ass in this lifetime, but that they generated enough income from their previous karmas. So our job is to clear our karma, clear our channels, clear our virtue, bring in more virtue, do things that are good, and clearing to unblock that. Like I know my past lives, some of them are a bit, like I'm not going to go into them here, but some of them are a bit like, really, Aaron? And you're wondering why you're having to clean up all this money karma? It's like, yeah. So in the Empowerment Collective tomorrow, we're going to be doing Money Matters. So, which is about bringing energy into matter. So we've got soul, heart, mind, body is kind of the flow. But body is basically energy into matter, energy into matter, energy into matter. So what we want to do is I'm going to be taking people through a glow up to get their ideas into matter, like to get them to matter, get them hilarious, which is the final shift in the piece of the puzzle. When I said I'm going to get people's ideas to matter, I had to get my own ideas to matter, right? I had to believe in what I'm telling you because I know it's so true. I've lived it over and over and over and over. And so there we go. That's the end of the final piece of the little piece of the puzzle is that your ideas matter. The things that you want to bring in the world matter. And if you are feeling an inkling of entrepreneurial spirit, you might not be an entrepreneur, but you have an idea that you haven't brought into life yet, I'm your gal. If you have a business and it's not doing the things you want, I'm your gal. Like there's that version as well. If you're a, energetics person and you just want to clear your shit, I'm also your girl. So there's different versions of how we operate, how I operate. Yeah, where you can enter through the business path, you can enter through the destiny path, or you can just DM me and enter through that path. That's the easiest path. And I'm all about the paths of least resistance. And so I am so looking forward after this first episode of Your Becoming, that your becoming becomes exactly like mine, an absolute incredible journey experience of life. And I'm so grateful that if you've listened to this all the way to the end, thank you for being here. And I look forward to recording more episodes for you. And if you end up being more in my world because of that, I'm looking forward to working with you and sharing ideas and calibrating and co-creating, because when you have the right people in business around you, you can create anything. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening. If you loved this podcast, make sure that you have subscribed, because that is the place to elevate and transform and begin your becoming and expand your becoming and become who you're meant to be in the world, because your ideas matter.